Data protection and privacy teams are under more pressure than ever with new laws, AI oversight, data breaches, and the constant expectation to do more with fewer resources.
That's why TrustArc built a modern privacy and data protection management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. It unifies your tools, automates the work that slows you down, and surfaces what matters most right when you need it.
From guided quick actions to our intelligent assistant, Ask Arc, you get credible, contextual answers backed by expert research, not generic AI guesses.
Finally, privacy that works the way privacy pros work.
Learn how TrustArc helps teams move faster with confidence at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.
You're listening to Serious Privacy, powered by TrustArc. Here are your hosts, Paul Breitbart, Ralph O'Brien, and Dr. Kay Royal.
Welcome to Serious Privacy. And it's our wonderful duty today to be able to bring in a guest that I've been working with for some time with the Institute of Operational Privacy by Design. We often talk so much about systems and data protection and privacy and how we can make things better, but I'm firmly of the belief that it is always useful with technological control to be able to bring firmer advantage back to the individual. And so today, as well as doing our normal news roundup, we're going to be joined by Akhi Srivastava. Akhi, I will ask him to introduce himself in a moment, but he is a senior leader with a wealth of experience, including working for large tech companies like Amazon, Meta, Capital One, and FINRA, in trying to introduce data protection and privacy technologies while still at the main time trying to make ad tech revenue. So we're going to have plenty of interesting questions for Akhilesh today. So in the meantime, my name is Ralph O'Brien.
My name is Paul Breitbart.
And I'm Kay Royal, and welcome to Serious Privacy. And you bet your bottom dollar I waited till Paul spoke first, because it's got to be privacy, not privacy. And welcome, Akhi. Nice to have you on the show. If you are familiar with our podcast, the next thing up is the unexpected question. And I think I've got a pretty good one this time. I think they're all pretty good, frankly.
Okay, fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah, good to see and hear from all of you. I'm very excited to be part of this discussion.
Thank you so much. So, unexpected question. What game, movie, or TV show universe would you like to live in?
Yes, there is one movie called Dangal. It's a Hindi movie in Bollywood led by Amir Khan. And that is about the equality of women's education. Back in India, there used to be a concept that boys are better than girls, and the opportunity of education was given in a priority manner to boys. And that has exactly happened with me, because I have 5 elder sisters. I was given science education, and then I got everything which is possible. And that's how I'm in the US. But my sisters never got that opportunity. So I can relate with that movie. And if I am given a chance, I would go and live and do the same thing that the hero, the actor, has done for his own child. And the story goes is that his child she was part of the Olympic later.
Wow.
That's impressive. He set the bar, y'all.
Yeah, I was just going to say Star Wars and leave it at that.
But your lightsaber would not be red. Is that what you're saying? Huh? What about you?
I guess you would expect that I would say the West Wing, given everything that is currently going on. But let me, for a change, say something else. I would want to be in the environment of the movie L'Auberge Espagnole, or The Spanish Apartment in English, which is about a group of European students on their Erasmus year in Barcelona. And just going back to those student days where you lived for a year in another country. For me, it was Bordeaux, not Barcelona, but same difference. And revisit that year for another time. I think that would be cool.
Interesting.
Nice. I love that. Y'all have been making choices just go back and forth in my head because y'all know I'm a geek. It could be Marvel, it could be DC, it could be Avengers, which is one of them, but specifically of the Avengers movies, it could be so many others. But you know what? I think I'm going to go down to Disney.
Oh, wow.
If I could live in a universe, it's going to be the animated, old school Disney animated movies. That's it. Cinderella, Snow White, Cruella, Maleficent, all of those. That's where I would live because the villains aren't really that bad.
And you know what? Even my child's imagination is also in the Wonderland. She's a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
And he also has a similar imagination and dreams.
It's just so nice when the world really isn't that bad and you can sing with birds and bunnies come hopping up to you. Who wouldn't that?
We've worked together in the Institute of Operational Privacy by Design. I know that's a topic that's really important to you, but perhaps you could just start with a couple of moments just to tell us how you got to where you got to and what's really important to you, why you've worked within these large companies and what difference you think you might have made, actually. I think that might be an interesting place to start.
Sure. So 2 parts. What brought me here, my background, and what difference did I make while working in these large technology companies? So let me quickly give a rundown of my background, how I started my career. I started my career as a software developer. In consulting companies, I used to develop applications, web-based applications, middleware technologies for several clients in the e-commerce, in the insurance domain, back in India, UK, and sometimes in the United States as well. And then I moved towards the banking, fintech, credit card payments company. And I led their Android app large-scale localization program. And that was an organic move towards the fintech regulation because when I already had got exposure in the fintech world, in the fintech regulation, we used to look at the stock market. And if someone is trying to manipulate the market by doing some fraudulent activity, we used to apply AI and machine learning to find the anomalies and then legally penalize them. Later, after this experience, I got into the large technology companies as a product and program leader, and predominantly in the area of the privacy of ad tech, as you already shared initially, and also the privacy of voice assistant. And this is where I got exposure to the data protection, GDPR, COPPA, even the GenAI governance as well, along with the privacy enhancing technologies like differential privacy. And as a leader of product and program, I delivered the products at very large scale. Along with that, also, as you initially shared, that I have been leading some of the privacy industry initiatives, like coming up with the catalog of the privacy control and also a guest lecturer at UIAC. So that's my journey. Now coming to what impact did I make while leading the programs at large technology companies and why did I choose? So data privacy or the data protection is core of my heart because I always believe in the equality, the story that I initially shared between my sisters and myself, where I want to do something where it has a direct ethical impact. The thing that we are doing, that is the right thing, right? So obviously this domain is the closest domain where I can fulfill my desire. And also coming from the background of mathematics, AI and ML is something which is always my passion. So a good combination of AI, ML and the privacy was given in the large technology companies, and that's where I made my impact.
Yeah, because it must always be an interesting area. And as soon as you said you'd worked for people like Meta, that they can be, let's say, thrown up in the data protection industry as, can we say, the bad guys? The people who are there to exploit and make financial profit through advertising. And you could argue that's the entire point of the company, isn't it? To make money or the data of individuals. So where does that balance lie? And for yourself, as someone who introduces privacy enhancing technology, what sort of appetite is there to strike that balance between making money as a business and yet protecting the individual?
Yes, and it's not an easy problem to solve as a product leader. And I do not want to take any specific companies' names because the intention of all these companies are good. It is just that the system is so complex and these are the problems which had never been solved. That's why it takes a lot of time to get the right things done. And coming up to the good balance of maintaining the revenue and at the same time respecting privacy, this is not a one full problem. So the problem which is solved is firstly starting with the right mindset that what is the right thing to do, keeping the customers at the center and do everything around. That is number one from the product side. Second approach that I saw that it worked very well is when engineers had the right mindset, the technology solution that they were building, they were keeping privacy by design and by default. Then eventually everything comes to a good uh, balance point where we know that, for example, the advertisement monetization completely, the revenue is dependent on that with some of the large technology companies. And eventually it depends on the user profiling and the behavior targeting. So how we can ensure that the user profiling and behavior targeting is happening in the right manner, that is a big product problem that I had to solve. But the motivation was that if I keep the customers at the center, I was able to come to a good balance. So that's the long answer for this.
Akhi, you're saying that one of the questions we should ask is whether the targeting is done in the right manner. Shouldn't there be a prior question if we should target at all?
Yeah, that's right. So there are two things. One is, if we are targeting, do we have the right consent from these customers? For example, if we are collecting the data as a first party where a customer, the end user has logged in and they have explicitly provided opt into the consent that yes, they are okay for their data to be used for the advertisement purpose. But if they are not, or if they have opted out, then it's a big responsibility for any product or engineering leader to ensure that their data is not used for any advertisement if there is no consent. And this seems like a simple problem, but this has a large multi-level complications to implement that, because intentions are good, but when we start going and we start executing it, there are multiple levels of execution that is required to achieve that. With the consent, we are still targeting.
So I think the view there is get consent and you're okay. But we've started to see a rise of models such as, what do they call it, pay or okay, consent or... And I think there are a lot of challenges going into courts at the moment about whether true consent has been obtained for individual, especially if the alternative is to pay a fee. There is some interesting conversations about whether the business model of advertising technology can ever really be legal, because how transparent can it be? We've seen some of the advertising technologies with TCF being challenged, and I don't know if people saw this week the messages from Johnny Ryan and the Belgian authority about what had happened with the High Court challenge there. Are the two mutually exclusive? Can an individual really consent? Or is the business model right or wrong? I think perhaps that's a far more fundamental question, and perhaps more of a philosophical one than one for an engineer. But as you said, it's your job to look at what consents have been gained and then be able to implement that appropriately. But I'm wondering, from your view as an insider, and again, please don't name any specific companies, what the view is and how difficult your job then is as a data protection practitioner to explain or bring to the surface some of these wider concerns about the business model in general.
Yes, I fully agree with this, that having the consent is not just a one level solution. Because what happens is, if you think from the customer side, and I remember when there are so many options to provide the consent, whenever I open any website, it says, yes, your data is being shared. Yeah. There are multiple levels. I just by default select all. So that's what they call the consent fatigue, right? Where they do not care what is being written. If you want only the mandatory data or you want to share all the data, we just select all. So having that.
Select none.
Yeah, or select none, right? So Or either go none or just select all, right? So this is the fatigue that we have seen. So as a product leader, the dilemma here is how do we ensure that there is an easier way or there is an obvious way to choose or provide an option to the end customers. For example, in few platforms, I have seen that opt-in and opt-out is hidden at the multiple levels down, and the end customers almost never looks at that option whether they have by default opted in or opt out. So that's why, as a product leader and the engineering leader, it is our job to ensure that by default we keep it opt out, and unless user says that yes, we are okay. And the second thing is make the UI or the UX in such a manner that it becomes obvious. It does not become a tedious job for end customer to make that decision. And this is where the complexity comes, because it is not just changing one simple UI and UX. There are multiple ecosystem where multiple down level engineering components which are involved in making that decision.
So the answer I'm getting is it's complicated. No, it is a fascinating thing to think about, and I don't want to press you too hard on what goes on all the internals. But how much pressure then is put on the product and engineering teams because sometimes data protection and privacy is looked at as the people who say no, and when even the question of a business model is brought into account, how much agency do you then have as a product manager to turn around and go, this isn't right, or we consider doing this another way? Is that even listened to within the organization, or are organizations genuinely trying to find the right ways, or are they more stuck towards let's just do it this way because that's the best way we can monetize and the best way we can make profit?
One thing I would want to say that the intentions are always good and they do want to do the right things. The challenge is how to do that. And this is where the expertise of the product and engineering leader comes, that if they are implementing something by keeping privacy at the mind, how do we ensure that the business and the business model is not getting impacted? How can we make their life easier? For example, just one typical example is there are code bases. Engineers are maintaining a large code base, right? And there is no way, or there is very complicated. There are multiple complicated ways to audit whether they are doing privacy by default or not. So as an engineering leader, if we introduce a concept of automation where privacy is instilled by default in the existing process through CI/CD or any other automated way, so that we can still achieve the privacy while maintaining very large scale code base. So this is where the responsibility eventually comes to an engineering leader and the product leader, how they can make the lives of the other stakeholders easier. If we just directly straightforward go and talk to these engineers and say that, hey, you have to follow privacy by default, there will always be pushback, because they have their own deliverable, they have their own business goals and their own personal goals as well. But if we make their life easier, instead of saying manually do all these things, if we can make it and automate it, it is just engraved in the existing process instead of adding one more new process which becomes bottleneck. So that's why bringing privacy in such a manner that it does not become a bottleneck, then it is very easy for me to get buy-in from any stakeholders.
Is that achievable?
It's work in progress, I would say.
I think we would all love to do it. You're going back to my Disney movies now. Everything is possible, right? Everything is good.
When you wish upon a star, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you go. When you wish upon a star. There's the episode title.
Yeah.
So how would you partner with the privacy lawyers and maybe other members of the privacy team? Who would take the final decision? Who would be the lead? Would it be engineering saying, these are the options that are actually possible? Or are they the lawyers who say, no, it has to happen this way?
Yes. So this is a good question. And especially the dilemma that I have seen in these places where they are implementing a privacy solution at large scale is who will be the eventual or the ultimate decision maker. And the working solution is it's a group of team members that includes the product, engineering, legal, privacy. Everyone has a say in the final decision making. And let me talk about one concrete example. One of the example is the implementation of differential privacy in the privacy enhancing technology, where there is a value of epsilon, which decides that how much should be the unique balance between the utility and the privacy budget. And when I say utility in terms of a business model, how relevant this personalized advertisement is, that is nothing but a utility. If we are showing irrelevant advertisement, that means it is not having a good utility. And at the same time, what is the balance with the privacy budget, where we are actually respecting the customer's privacy, we are protecting the data or not, right? So having a good balance comes with the right value of epsilon, the differential privacy. So in most of the cases, it is not just an engineering team goes back and says that, hey, this is the value we should follow. Or even it does not come from the legal team that, hey, this is the value that you must follow. This comes with a back and forth conversation with a lot of A/B testing, where we go with the various values of epsilon and where we decide that, hey, if we keep this particular value, this is a unique balance where we are having the right utility, we are showing the relevant advertisement, and at the same time, we are respecting users' privacy, we are complying with all the regulation. So it's a multiple weeks conversation, a lot of feedback, a lot of supporting data on taking the decision that why we are choosing this particular value. So this is the approach that I have seen work very well without being any stakeholder sideline, and which is a good thing, in fact.
So am I hearing you correctly that you're saying that in order to preserve individuals' data protection and find the balance between that and the business needs, what you actually need is more data?
No, it's not more data. It is the data and how we can apply the privacy enhancing technology on the existing data. For example, if you are doing aggregation, if you are doing anonymization, or if you are doing just simple differential privacy, as I said, at what level or at what sensitivity level we are doing the aggregation, that is the decision that is taken by the group of the team. More data doesn't work well, especially in terms of privacy. But yes, of course, it works well in the business insight. And this is where there is a right judgment is required from the product leader, that do we really need this much data? Because it may bring more business insight and it can create a new opportunity to build new feature, but eventually at the cost of having any FTC penalty or at the cost of losing the trust and customers' trust, which is also a potential revenue loss. So there is no concrete way to find it out. The revenue loss is directly mapped with the user trust. But if we keep collecting more data, then we are actually going to lose the revenue. And that insight comes with the mature product and engineering leadership.
So that sounds like a maths equation then, where you're saying if we lose data protection, we start to lose revenue and customer trust. So where does the tipping point lie between losing money, between losing customers and losing customer trust, and gaining money from the ad tech revenue? Are we suggesting a sort of a balancing formula as opposed to let's just say, a more human rights model like you'd see here in Europe?
Yes, that's right. So both the sides are equally evaluated. So there is no compromise, that is for sure. As a leader, I have never seen any places where I have worked.
This is a fascinating conversation, and I'm sure we could carry it on forever. I know we're on a little bit of a shorter time stream today, and I apologize for that. I was actually caught in traffic, so we started our recording a little bit later today. But before we close, Akhi, today, I did want to open up and just ask you a question of some points you wanted to raise, especially about the work we're involved in today with the Institute of Privacy by Design, and what you want to see as sort of the next steps happening as we...
Yeah, so the work that IPD is doing, one area which is very interesting is, if you observe, there are so many controls, which is in the security words. We have, for example, encryption or anything which is called security controls, and there are several standards and framework. But if you think from the privacy side, there is a clear lack of the privacy system or privacy technical controls. And when I say that, I meant, for example, if someone says that, hey, there should be a policy to protect the data. So that is not a technical or system control. It's an organizational control that most of the organizations say that, yes, they are having control where it says there must be a policy to protect the data. But there is no actual implementation or to verify whether that has happened or not. So this is where the work that IOPD is doing is to come up with the catalog of the privacy controls, which will not only be the organizational, but that will also be a system and technical level that can be accepted or adopted by small size or mid-size companies so that they can guarantee that they are doing the right things by privacy by design or privacy by default. That's something which I'm very excited, and I believe that they have deliverables sometime end of this year.
That would be certainly wonderful. We can certainly put links in the description to some of the good work they're doing about creating standards and creating a library of controls. It's one of the things that they call privacy patterns, right? So that you have a playbook. If X, then Y. In the military, we were always taught that it's what we called actions on. If A, B, and C occurs, then the drill is you do X, Y, and Z. And if we can build a library of controls that people can access and use, common solutions to common problems, hopefully that'll be a sort of a good resource for people to utilize going forwards.
That almost sounds like an algorithm, Ralph. If this, then that.
That's not the way I work. On that note, then, I guess this is a shorter recording today, but I want to thank Akhi for his time today. And we'll make sure that we post up the usual links to if you want to get in touch and continue the discussion.
That was Serious Privacy.
This wraps up our podcast for this week. Please do share the episode with your friends and colleagues because we love to get more listeners. And join the conversation on LinkedIn or on Blue Sky. You'll find us under Serious Privacy on both platforms. You'll find Kay as Heart of Privacy, Ralph as IGR O'Brien, and myself as Europol B. Until next week, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye, y'all.
If you're a data protection or privacy professional, you already know the pressure. Non-stop regulatory change, AI oversight, internal demands, and the expectation to somehow stay ahead of it all. And the old patchwork of tools just isn't cutting it anymore.
No. That's why TrustArc created a modern privacy management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. The TrustArc platform brings your workflows, evidence, research, tasks, and applications all together in one unified and intelligent workspace so you don't waste time digging, clicking, or context switching.
With Ask Arc, your privacy assistant, you can ask plain language questions about laws, jurisdictions, or even your own program data and get credible, cited answers based on NIMD research and more than 1,000 global laws. It's explainable, transparent, and purpose-built for data protection and privacy.
So if you need to add a vendor, create a cookie banner, or start an assessment, quick actions take formally complex tasks, turn them into bite-sized guided workflows to save you time.
It's a platform that thinks like you, works like you, and helps you move faster with confidence, whether you're a seasoned DPO or you're just getting started.
See how modern privacy gets done. Explore Arc at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.